Forget the security ruling. Forget the Frogmore headlines. Forget whether Harry and William are going to sit in the same room at Balmoral this summer. Here is the one question nobody in this space is asking out loud. What does the 30-day advance notice rule actually cost Meghan Markle in British pounds sterling per year? Not Harry, not the family reconciliation angle. Not the story about a grandfather with cancer who hasn't seen his grandchildren since June 2022, though we will get to that, and that section of this video is going to stop you cold. The question that unlocks everything in this file, the one that explains why William was reportedly calling contacts in Australia before his 2026 tour had even been scheduled, is a commercial one. That 30-day notice requirement, the Rule 3 Court of Appeal judges upheld in May 2025, is not a security inconvenience. A commercial restraint written into law is what it actually is. Stack it against the Frogmore conversion assessment, the title card that got filmed and broadcast to millions, and the single word a William-adjacent source used to describe the Sussex brand in December 2025. And you stop reading a family dispute. What you're reading instead is an architecture, a structure with no public announcement attached to it, no press release, no moment where anyone had to say anything out loud. It just built itself. One institutional decision at a time, until the doors stopped opening. That's what this video is actually about. Give me 90 seconds before you click away. Because what the next 15 minutes lay out is not available in any single place across mainstream media or any other channel covering this story. Not because it's hidden. Because holding 5 separate documented facts in the same frame simultaneously is work that nobody covering this story has been willing to do on camera yet. By the time we reach the financial section, you'll understand why a friend of the royals said, in those exact words, that a security win would change everything, and you'll understand why William's team is not concerned about that review going the wrong way. Even if Harry gets standing security restored, 2 of the 3 legs of the architecture are already in motion, 5 revelations, each one more damaging than the one before. This channel has under 130 subscribers as of this recording. No sponsors, no PR relationships, no one with a seat at any table telling me what I can and cannot say. The argument is the only thing on offer here. So let's build it. Why now? Why does this particular moment matter? 2 things happened at the same time and nobody has put them in the same sentence yet. The first, the Ravesey review. Ravesey, the Royal and VIP Executive Committee, the government body that controls Harry's protection status, launched a fresh internal assessment in December 2025. Harry had written directly to the new Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, demanding the annual reassessment that Ravesey's own procedural rules require, but had somehow not completed since 2020. Meaning 5 full years had passed without a formal risk assessment on a man the courts themselves acknowledged faces documented real threats. The government quietly agreed to take another look, and multiple 2026 reports described the internal tone as, and this is the exact word those sources used, positive. A win on security, a friend of the royals said, would change everything. The second development. And this is the one William's people are actively watching. Meghan was reported to be furious after hearing claims that she and the children would not be welcomed by William and Catherine. And what began as a disagreement escalated into what insiders called a showdown. That same week, the Ravesey review was confirmed as live. The Frogmore cottage conversion assessment was announced. The last Sussex address in Britain being lined up for dismantlement. William was reportedly furious at that precise moment, not about the security case itself, but about what security approval actually means for Meghan's access to the United Kingdom. Because his team had already worked out what most of his critics hadn't. Here is the core contradiction the whole video rests on. Statement A. The Sussex legal case has always been framed publicly as a personal safety matter for Harry, a man the courts acknowledged faces documented threats. Record B, the timing, the institutional mechanics, the documentary evidence, and the financial consequences all point in a different direction toward the fact that the person with the most to lose commercially from the current arrangement is not Harry, it's Meghan. Harry can travel privately and accept personal risk. That option sits open to him right now. He can land in the UK, hire private security, and manage the exposure himself. Meghan cannot do that and remain commercially viable to British or European partners, because her entire business identity, the title, the brand, the royal adjacent credibility that makes her interesting to international media, It requires the ability to appear in public on British soil. She can visit privately. Working is a different matter entirely. And for someone whose commercial survival runs entirely on public presence, that distinction is the whole equation. The pattern here is specific. Every previous Sussex institutional conflict came with a public-facing narrative the couple could respond to. A tabloid story, a palace briefing, a named royal rebuke, something they could push against. This one doesn't. This one is structural, quiet, legal and bureaucratic. And it's working without a single public word from William's office. Primary sources. The Court of Appeal ruling from Sir Geoffrey Voss, May 2025. The judicial review documents filed by Harry's legal team. Raves' own procedural rules. Robert Jobson's reporting on the William-adjacent source quote. The Jamie Kern-Lima podcast recording from April 28, 2025. Daily Beast reporting on William's contacts in Australia. Sunday Times sourcing on the Buckingham Palace framing of Harry's children as a bargaining tool. Everything is on the record. None of it requires speculation. Quick pause, because this matters. This channel has under 130 subscribers. 130. And next week we are going somewhere that nobody else in this space wants to touch. We're going through the Sandringham Agreement clause by clause. Against the documented to commercial use of Sussex titles since 2020, building the case for what a breach of that agreement would actually look like in legal terms, not what commentators say it means. The actual agreement against the actual law, that video will not be up for long. Subscribe now so you don't miss it. Back to the case file, Revelation 1, what bespoke actually means May 2025. And the Court of Appeal issues its ruling on Harry's challenge to the Ravesey security arrangement. The ruling comes from Sir Geoffrey Voss, the master of the rolls. And he summarises the entire legal position in one sentence that should have been the headline of every piece of coverage that week, and somehow went almost entirely unreported. Sir Geoffrey wrote that Harry was, and this is a direct quote from the ruling, in effect stepping in and out of the cohort of protection provided by Rave A. Stepping in and out. The court's position is that Harry voluntarily exited the protection structure when he stepped back from royal duties, and that structure was under no legal obligation to follow him out the door. The government's response was to offer what they called a bespoke arrangement, security assessed case by case, visit by visit, calibrated individually rather than provided as standing coverage. Harry's barristers had a specific answer to that word. Their exact submission to the court. The appellant does not accept that bespoke means better. In fact, it means he has been singled out for different, unjustified, and inferior treatment. Bespoke, better, inferior, all three words used in the same courtroom about the same arrangement, and only one of them is accurate. What makes the arrangement inferior is not the protection level on any given day. The 30-day advance notice requirement is what makes it inferior, because it converts every private visit into a public announcement made a full month in advance. Harry's lawyers argued that notice requirement itself created a security risk. The judges weren't moved, and the ruling described Harry's legal position in language that generated almost no coverage. The judges noted that his sense of grievance did not amount to a viable legal argument. His sense of grievance. 6 years of a man fighting through the British legal system to secure the right to bring his family safely to his home country. That's how 3 Court of Appeal judges characterised it. Revelation 1 is this. The legal challenge is exhausted. The court upheld the arrangement, and the 30-day public notice window is the law of the land. But the ruling is only half the picture, because Ravesey doesn't operate in isolation. 2 representatives from the royal household sit directly on that committee, and Harry's legal team had something very specific to say about those 2 seats. That's not the most damaging part. Revelation 2 is where the institutional conflict of interest gets named in a public court document, Revelation 2. The 2 seats on the committee Harry's challenge didn't simply argue that Ravesey reached the wrong conclusion on the facts. The formal submission in the judicial review argued that Ravesey was compromised in its process. His legal team alleged that the palace weaponised its 2 committee seats. The submission argued that before Harry and Meghan stepped back from royal duties in January 2020, a threat had been communicated, spoken or unspoken, that security would vanish if they left. When they did leave, those 2 palace representatives on Rave A allegedly leaned on the committee to make the removal happen, despite what Harry's team described as his particular and documented security risks. The court rejected the argument as a legal matter. And that's the part everyone reported. What most coverage skipped is that the argument itself is permanently on the public record. It sits in court documents, filed in a British court, and heard in open proceedings. The claim that representatives of the future king's household shaped the committee's decision on whether Harry's family could travel safely. That's not a Sussex media narrative produced in California. It's a formal legal submission that was heard, weighed, and ruled upon. And here's why it lands specifically on Meghan, not Harry. Those two palace representatives answer to the royal household, which operates under the direction of the senior working royals, and William is now the senior working royal. His institutional machinery was in the room in 2020 when the security came off. Those same representatives will be in the room when the December 2025 Ray VC review reaches its conclusion. The man who reportedly views the Sussex brand's commercial use of royal titles as fraudulent. A characterization attributed to sources close to William by multiple journalists has his institutional representatives sitting on the committee that determines whether Meghan gets working access to the United Kingdom. That's not a family disagreement wearing an institutional costume. A governance conflict of interest with a commercial price tag is what that is. And the math doesn't require a spreadsheet. It requires holding two facts in the same frame at the same time. That's Revelation 2. But if you think the institutional angle is the sharpest part of this case file, stay with me. Meghan has been running a parallel operation on the title question, and she got caught twice. Revelation 3, the card, the denial, and the 48-hour turnaround April 28, 2025. Meghan appears on entrepreneur Jamie Kern-Lima's podcast, and mid-interview, Lima produces footage of a gift basket. Meghan had previously sent jam ice cream branded product from the As Ever line. Attached to the basket was a card. And on that card, printed in black and white, were the words, "With compliments of HRH, the Duchess of Sussex. HRH, Her Royal Highness." The precise title, Buckingham Palace, stated in 2020 the Sussexes would not use. The spokesperson's response came immediately. They don't use HRH titles. Flat denial. That was Monday. By Tuesday, a second source was on record with a revised position. They keep the title privately, they just don't use it commercially. 2 days, two contradictory answers about the same card that was filmed and broadcast to millions of viewers. The story changed in under 48 hours. It's becoming a bit of an Olympic event at this point. A former palace courtier gave the most direct reading of the Sandringham Agreement's actual meaning. His interpretation of what the 2020 agreement required. They had agreed not to use the HRH titles at all, in any capacity, not publicly. Not commercially, not privately, not ever. And there it was on a gift card, filmed, published, impossible to recall. The card isn't the only incident. Meghan also reposted on her personal social media a message from the Vice President of Ukraine that addressed her directly as Your Royal Highness. Her team's position was that someone else had used the title and she had merely shared it, which is technically accurate, and also precisely what you do when you want the title's visibility and credibility without the title's formal accountability. Let a third party say it, amplify their voice, collect the brand value, and preserve deniability, because the words originated elsewhere. Friends of William told the Daily Beast they believed Meghan was testing the waters while maintaining what they called built-in deniability. Because the words came from someone else, William's team read that pattern and named it exactly as they saw it. Not an accident, a pattern. And that pattern is what had William reportedly making calls to institutional contacts in Australia before the 2026 royal tour had even begun. Revelation 3 is this: the physical evidence exists, it was broadcast, it cannot be retracted. And it confirmed the behavioural pattern William's people had already identified. But the card and the Ukraine repost are not the most damaging things in this file. In December 2025, a source close to the future king said one word about the Sussex brand that changes the entire strategic picture entirely. Revelation 4, the worthless verdict and the strategy it reveals, December 2025. And a William-adjacent insider gives journalist Robert Jobson the single most strategically revealing assessment of the Sussex brand you'll find anywhere in print. The direct quote, "By the time William takes the throne, the Sussex brand will be so diminished it won't even matter. Why take away something that's already worthless? Worthless." That's the word a source close to the future King of England chose to describe the commercial enterprise Meghan spent 5 years building, defending in court, and rebuilding after each institutional setback. William's entire strategic posture on the title question flows from that one word. Formally stripping the titles requires an Act of Parliament, which would hand the Sussexes a guaranteed global sympathy narrative and a month of international headlines, and the move itself would generate conflict, and conflict would generate relevance, and relevance would generate commercial value, the exact commercial value the waiting strategy is designed to drain away quietly. Robert Jobson reported William's logic plainly: ignoring them hurts more. Think about what that means for Meghan specifically. Her commercial playbook, the one that produced Netflix deals and As Ever products and the podcast and the memoir's commercial aftermath, was built on conflict. On being the couple the institution was out to destroy. The tabloids were the villain, the palace was the villain, the family was the villain, the conflict was the content, and the content was the money. And the money required a continuous institutional supply of aggression to push against. William stopped supplying the conflict. Every time Meghan posts something, every time Harry releases a statement, every time they launch a new project, they're swinging at an opponent who has his hands in his pockets and is looking the other way. That position is new for Meghan. Her commercial identity was forged entirely in opposition. Without the opposition, the forge goes cold. You can't beat indifference with a press release. You can't out-argue a future king who has decided you're not worth the argument. Revelation 4 is this. William's strategic position has been made explicit by his own circle. It is passive rather than active, and it is working without one visible move. But it doesn't complete the trap on its own. The final piece is the one that connects every other revelation into a single coherent structure. And it requires 3 facts, not opinions, verified, publicly acknowledged facts. Revelation 5, the architecture of the lockout fact 1. The current bespoke security arrangement requires 30 days of advance written notice to Scotland Yard before any visit to the United Kingdom. 30 days in writing, a full calendar month of press exposure before any appearance. Commercial, personal, or private can happen. 3 Court of Appeal judges upheld this requirement as lawful in May 2025. Fact 2. Frogmore Cottage, renovated at a cost of £2.4 million from the sovereign grant. The only UK address the Sussexes have ever held, is currently being assessed for conversion back into separate staff residential units. No final decision has come through yet, but the surveying is underway. If that conversion proceeds, no Sussex address remains anywhere in the United Kingdom. Fact 3. Standing security, the kind that allows working royals to move freely, appear without advance announcement, and conduct private commercial meetings, without a month of tabloid build-up, gets built around a fixed home address and operational familiarity with a specific location. Without a fixed address, a standing arrangement cannot be constructed. Without a standing arrangement, the bespoke 30-day notice system is the only option left on the menu. Stack those 3 facts. No fixed address, no standing arrangement. 30 days of public notice before every single move. What you get isn't punishment, it's architecture. A structure that makes sustained, spontaneous, commercially viable public operations in the United Kingdom functionally impossible. Not illegal, not formally prohibited. Impossible in practice. The way a door that's been bricked over from the other side isn't locked, it simply no longer opens. Was this designed with deliberate intent, brick by brick? Or did it accumulate through separate institutional decisions that happen to fit together? That question belongs in the comments. But the outcome is identical either way. Meghan's ability to run a British public commercial platform has been quietly, legally, bureaucratically removed, without a single public statement from the palace, without one named order from William's office, without a single action that can be filmed, reported, and converted into a Sussex grievance narrative. That's Revelation 5. That's the architecture. And here's what it costs in real money when you apply it to what the Sussex brand actually needs in order to survive, slowing right down here, because underneath every legal filing, every committee meeting, every courtroom submission, and every institutional decision we've just walked through, 2 children exist who have absolutely nothing to do with any of it. Prince Archie is 6 years old. Princess Lilibet is 4. June 2022 was the last time either of them set foot on British soil. Archie was 3, Lilibet was barely 1. No Windsor, no visits to the house their father grew up in. No introduction to the country whose name is written into their titles. Their grandfather, King Charles, is being treated for cancer, and the arrangement that would make bringing them to Britain safe, private, and logistically manageable still hasn't been sorted after 4 years of legal proceedings. Harry put it clearly after the May 2025 ruling. A safe return is only really possible now if the royal family formally invites him. Here because an institutional invitation triggers its own separate security protocols that the bespoke arrangement doesn't. An invitation from the institution, that is what it now takes for a father to bring his children to see their grandfather while time remains. The invitation hasn't come. And then there's this. A palace source speaking to the Sunday Times described Harry's request for improved security so he could bring his family and stay as long as he wanted as, and this is the verbatim quote from a source inside Buckingham Palace, using the king's grandchildren as a form of bargaining tool. Read that one more time. A father wanting to bring his 6-year-old and his 4-year-old to visit their grandfather, who is being treated for cancer, framed by an official palace source not as a family visit. Not as the most natural human instinct there is, but as a bargaining tool. Those children didn't choose to be born into an institutional war. They didn't choose a grandfather with cancer and a father whose security status gets argued over in courtrooms. 6 and 4 years old, and they haven't seen Windsor, haven't been to Britain, haven't sat in the house their father grew up in. Because every adult in every room involved can't resolve one government committee's decision from 2020, a decision made before Lilibet existed at all. That's not strategy, that's grief. No PR operation running out of an office in California changes what those facts are. Here's the verdict, and this needs precision because the story is more complicated than most coverage wants to acknowledge. Meghan Markle built something genuinely difficult. Taking a title and a platform that could have evaporated the moment, she stepped back from royal duties and converting it into a recognizable commercial brand with real revenue behind it. In a market with every institutional reason to reject her, required real strategic intelligence and real execution. That's not nothing, and calling it nothing would be inaccurate. And this week, the operation around her made a mistake. Not because of the security ruling, which went exactly as William's side anticipated. Not because of the Frogmore conversion assessment, which was always a foreseeable, institutional move. The mistake was simpler and more revealing than either of those, the gift card. The one, filmed on a podcast watched by millions. The one that said HRH in black and white on a branded product. The denial that lasted less than 48 hours before the story shifted. That sequence, the card, the instant denial. The overnight revision, handed the interpretive authority over the Sandringham Agreement to William's institutional allies, at exactly the moment when the RAVC review is deciding whether Meghan gets the UK commercial access her brand needs. It confirmed, in a format that cannot be retracted or reframed, the behavioural pattern William's team had already identified and named. Testing the waters with built-in deniability, William's people saw it, named it, and filed it. William's position in all of this is the coldest thing in the entire case file. No action required, no public statement, no open lobbying, not one documented move that can be filmed and spun into a Sussex grievance narrative. He just has to wait. Let the architecture do what architecture does. Hold its shape while everything inside it quietly contracts. The palace door didn't slam. The name just came off the guest list, and they found out later. The Sussex PR machine, built from the ground up on being the couple the system was out to destroy, has no answer for a future king who has decided to stop supplying the conflict. Here's the question I want you to sit with. And a real specific theory in the comments is what I'm after. Not a reaction, not a loyalty declaration, but a genuine analytical answer to something that genuinely hasn't been cracked yet. The December 2025 RAVC review has been described across multiple separate reports as carrying a positive internal tone, and that review is still live. If it restores Harry's security, standing coverage, no advance notice requirement, genuine free movement, William loses the one operational mechanism keeping Meghan's UK commercial access structurally boxed in. But 2 institutional representatives from William's household reportedly sit on that committee. The government's stated legal position is that the original 2020 decision was made in unique circumstances and that any new decision must meet the standard of rational and fair reasoning. So given everything now in evidence, the 30-day notice rule, the Frogmore conversion, the title card and the 48-hour contradiction, the worthless verdict from a source close to the throne, and Netflix ending its investment in As Ever in March 2026, do you genuinely believe that December 2025 Rave-C review gives Harry his security back? And if it does, whose decision do you actually think that was? Drop your theory below. Every single one gets read. This story isn't over. The next chapter starts with whatever that Ravey review produces and with how William's office responds on the day the result is announced, or more precisely, how they choose not to respond. The architecture doesn't announce itself, it just builds until the doors stop opening.